Welcome to a new episode of Necessity. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement to make. My lovely and wonderful co-host has gotten engaged. So, welcome and give her a big congrats. Yay! Engagements, wedding season, all of that. I'm doing jazz hands. And I felt like I should do that. So tell us, how did it happen? What's up? Give us a scoop.
So I met a guy and he asked me to marry him. No,
fill in the deets. Fill in the details.
So, one, I'm super excited and scared as hell all at the same time. But we went on a trip to the Dominican Republic to celebrate my cousin's 50th birthday. And we both were really looking forward to the vacation because we both work really hard and don't get to spend as much quality time together. And so while we were out on this trip, he's like, look, sweetheart, we don't spend enough time together at home. And I really think that you and I should have dinner tonight, just us, and your family will meet up with them afterwards. So I was carrying a little bit of guilt because I was like, wait a minute, my family invited us out on this trip. How we're going to create our own set, and do our own thing. And he's like, don't worry about it. I talked to them about it. I'm like, okay, check you out. So I put on my best. I took a shower, got myself ready because anything can happen. And he totally surprised me. He had dinner on the beach. He had picked out my entire meal. I had lobster, not like a tail, like the whole thing. So delicious. Champagne and wine and the sunset and sand and waves and just everything beautiful that I love. And we were enjoying ourselves. The meal was delicious. And then my cousins came over and I was like, boy, goddamn, you killing my vibe. I was just trying about to, make a move or something. And, but little did I know they were all a part of this plan. My cousin, she came and stood in front of me. And then he got up from his seat and went behind me. So I thought he went to go talk to the guys. And while we're talking about the food, I'm bragging about my lobster, wiping the butter that was like hanging off of my chin, and my cousin says, turn around. And I'm like, excuse me, ¿qué pasó? And she said, turn around. And when I turned around, there he was on one knee in the sand with a ring asking me to spend the rest of my life with him. And I don't even remember half of the stuff he said because I was busy like screaming and crying and conflicting. I had like an emotional response and then I had a mental response, but he totally saw all of the emotional response. It was really wild. I had this belief that I would never get married. I really was like, I'm never going to get married. I'm okay with that. I was all right with it because my dad has been married 3 times.
Oh, okay.
3 times. Okay.
Right.
He has had.
So that's where that comes from.
Yeah. And my mom never remarried after my dad. So I was just like, hey, marriage is just a thing, you know, and some people do it, some people don't. So when, my partner proposed to me, I was totally surprised. Now, not 100% surprised. So he's going to hear this for the very first time, but I have found the receipt to the ring, right? He went away to a basketball tournament and I'm cleaning up and there was a piece of paper on the floor. So I just picked it up and I opened it and I was talked about a ring and there was like money put down. I was like, nah.
Looking at the paper, like, holding it in your hand, you're saying no.
Yes. And I'm like, nah, because I'm not getting married, right? I'm not supposed to get married. So this is a ring for him. And I really just was like, I'm going to just see whatever happens. I think he's just going all out for himself.
Wait, you guys never discussed it before at any point in your relationship?
Maybe like once, and that was probably like a year and a half ago. And I just genuinely asked, hey, how come you never asked me to marry you? And it wasn't like, hey, why you ain't asked me? Like I'm waiting. I was just curious, kind of doing my own self-assessment.
But why were you curious if you had already made up in your mind that you weren't going to get married?
Because it was really me checking my self-worth. right? And I think that like growing up, society kind of teaches us that you are the most valuable and most important when somebody proposes to you and chooses you to be their wife. So it was like,
you got chose.
Yeah, I got chosen. He picked me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that question came from. It was really like me looking at myself and saying, you know, am I enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, as we talked about in another episode where that belief then comes up and it's like, maybe I'm not because this guy that I'm with forever hasn't asked me to marry him. And I was just, again, conflicting. It was just like, I'm okay with not being married, but I'm just curious. Not like if you would have asked, I would have been like, nah. I don't know what would have happened. It's wild.
That's interesting. And then you said another thing when you were describing the proposal. You said you had an emotional response. And you also had a mental response. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So, like, the emotional response was, you know, that really sloppy cry where snot is coming out of your nose and exactly, you're not wearing your waterproof mascara, so you look a little bit like a raccoon. You know, that whole thing going on. That was the emotional response. But the mental response was really, me? You want me to be your wife? You're picking me? Because I never fathomed it. So it was just like, wow, here we are, moving on to another chapter, a chapter I didn't prepare to read.
That's interesting. So, but tell me, I'm super curious about this and what you're saying, because you know, you're saying you want me to be your wife, but you're already the mother of his child.
Two different things to me.
What's so different about them?
I don't know. It's like, I'm already the mother of the child, right? But that's it. You just birth a baby, you raise the baby, and all those other responsibilities you can choose to take on or not, right? That's really, I think, who you are as a person. But I guess the wife thing is like a forever. And when you have a baby with someone, and again, I'm going off of my experience. Right. I come from a divorced home. My parents haven't spoken since my college graduation, right? And before my college graduation, it was my high school graduation. And before my high school graduation, it was probably something, I was doing something terrible at home maybe. And my mother was like, you're going to go stay with your daddy. Right. You know, like one of those. Okay. So I think that might be where some of that kind of came from.
Right, where you were able to really like separate the two, right, that they don't have to coexist.
Correct. I mean, and look at even like the times that we're in, right? You got a wife, you got a baby mama, you know, and then sometimes there's that blended family or not. Right. And because we never really talked about it. And I think that goes to show the power of communication, how essential it is in a relationship, and not even just the day-to-day communication, but talking about like goals in the future. We're recently doing a vision board together, but that's not something that we had done in the past. And probably if we had done that, then there wouldn't have been much of a surprise about certain things. We would really be on the same page about what we want for each other in this relationship, not just what we want individually, like my personal goals and his personal goals, right? But really like our collaborative goals, our family goals, the couple goals, the family goals. Exactly. So the shit blew my mind, okay? And now I just can't sleep at all. And I'm not even dreaming about like weddings or anything.
So what is consuming your mental space?
It's just the anxiety of it. I mean, though nothing has actually changed, besides the fact that I have a ring on my finger, the subconsciously, there's all this other stuff going on that only shows up when I'm fucking trying to get some sleep. And I'm not able to get that sleep.
Right,
I mean,
because you're not being distracted by every daily errands or work or, you know, whatever else we consume our waking hours with. And you're able to just sit there and think.
Yeah, and so it's really wild. So I even think of so you know, one episode we talked about the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, right? Yep. And so he has this other book, The Mastery of Love, that you know we both have read and just really talk about quite often. And there's this one chapter in the book where he talks about like perfect relationships, and that chapter was really about, let's say, Marguerite, you're a cat lover and you get yourself a cat, you get yourself a dog instead of a cat. And you're looking at this dog like, how come you're not saying meow? How come you're not rubbing up against my leg or the couch? How come you don't like catnip? How come you're not drinking this milk? All the characteristics that you love about a cat, you are questioning this dog.
Yeah, because I got a dog.
Right.
Right.
But
right.
you love cats.
Right. And so I'm trying to put the dog in the cat box.
Exactly. And so we do that with people. Right. And so in these relationships, it's like, I got with this one person, but now I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. And so for a long time, I would try to change who my partner was. Little things, like time. He sucks at being on time. Sucks big time. Okay? Him and time are just like enemies.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. You just got to put a buffer around whatever time you got to get somewhere.
Right. But see, it took me a while to get there, right? Because before it was like, how come he's not on time? How come he's not? I have to accept him and time are not friends. So what I have to do is tell him 30 minutes before it's actually time to be there, right? That leaves the wiggle room.
Right.
And it's a part of that perfect relationship is saying, look, you have to accept who you have and choose to be in that, or accept who you have and choose not to be in that.
Exactly. Or know how to adjust. And it's funny because I'm just going to take a segue on the time thing because I have a similar experience, and I know other women that also have the same experience. And I think, I think we get a bad rap for the how long it takes to get ready. And, I'm always ready before he is.
And he's a guy, right? And so it's assumed that guys should just be ready.
He doesn't deal with the makeup. And yeah, I know my hair is low now, but there's no hair doing like, what are you doing? What's taking so damn long? Let's go.
That's right.
Let's go.
Yep.
Let's go. So you're not alone in that bucket or in that boat at all. And I think, just meeting people where they are. And like you said, like, okay, is this something I'm going to be able to deal with or not?
Right.
It's really take it or leave it.
And it's something that I can deal with, right? And for a while, I thought I couldn't. It was like one of the biggest complaints. And it was like, well, wait a minute. Am I always on time?
No. Right.
So why am I in this big funk about him being late when my ass is late too?
Right. That's that same thing that we could get so up in arms about something that we also do or we also don't do. But when somebody else is doing it, all of a sudden, like the alarms are going off and it looks like, they're just not caring, or like, why didn't you give yourself enough time and this, that, and the other? But when you're late, it's just like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. You just shrug it off. You don't have that same level of animosity.
Right.
When it's somebody else.
And I think that comes back to being engaged, right? Or, being married. When you're just in a regular old relationship, I mean, with or without kids, right? You figure, hey, this doesn't work out or they don't behave the way that I want them to, I could just leave, right? But marriage is a little more complicated than that as far as paperwork, I guess, goes and the legal piece of that. But that, again, feels like pressure. So it's just like a lot of fear.
But is it, I mean, you could still leave whether you're married or not. It's just, I guess, the convenience aspect of it.
It's not like the movies, though. The movies is like, you know what? I'm out of here. And you grab your kid and you grab one suitcase because apparently all your shit can fit in one suitcase. And then you get up out of there. Right? But then it's not like that. And I'm not saying that, hey, I anticipate leaving, right?
Right.
But thinking of who I am as a person, commitment has been a huge issue for me. This is the first real, fully committed, all-in relationship that I've been in, and that it's leading to marriage.
Right.
So it's like,
yeah, and I think this opens up a lot of opportunity for you and Peter, like to really define what your marriage will be, right? Without having to try to squeeze yourselves into society's expectations box, or the box that has been laid out for you. And I think it's just always interesting, like with this particular, you know, like, what do I want to call it? Like, life milestone. I'll call it a milestone.
Mm-hmm.
And where like the response is always, well, have you picked a date yet?
Right. Are you going to have a destination wedding?
How big is your bridal party going to be?
Right. Where are you going to have it? How much money are you going to spend?
Yeah.
Have you saved any money yet?
What is the dinner options? Are you going to do a buffet?
What's the colors? What colors are y'all going to wear?
Like, hang on. Can I just be in the moment? And I think that's so, it's just so wild to me that they want, like, people's responses, I guess they don't know how else to respond, but ask like what what the date is. Like, it can't ever just be, well, congratulations.
That's
like
it.
It's got to be this litany of questions that you haven't even thought about. Like, can I this just happened. Can I be in the moment? Like, and I think like where we are right now in society, like we hear a lot about mindfulness and being in the present,
right?
And really soaking in what's happening to you and your experiences. And I feel like those questions are just throwing you so far into the future that you didn't even already, you didn't figure these things out for yourself. And now you feel, sometimes you might feel, I know I felt this, like, well, damn, should I have figured that out already?
Right. Yeah. And, I try not to take those questions personally, right? Because, again, when we talk about like the brain just trying to figure out the gaps, all we know is that you're getting married. What else is going on, right? What else? And there's all this other information that people want to know. But I wish they would just say, congratulations. But it's almost like when you have a baby and after your baby makes a certain age, they're like, when you having another baby?
Yeah. I hate
you know
that
what?
One too.
I will slap you if you ask me, when am I having another baby? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I can't.
Right.
Maybe I can't.
Right.
But we have been programmed to have expectations for how life is supposed to look. Yep. And how people are supposed to be. So it's like, you get married, okay, it needs to happen soon. And you have to have a bridesmaid, and you have to have this. And the whole thing, even with, what is that? The bridesmaid or the maid of honor, matron of honor, one of them got to be married. The other one can't. Somebody got to be a virgin and can't wear whatever color. It's like, who made this shit up? I'm so over it. So I'm going to be one of those like rebel brides, not a bridezilla.
Right. But just not conforming to societal norms.
All.
And I, and it's interesting because I too like question societal norms, right? Because they just don't fit into today's lifestyle, right? So like historically, like with marriage, it's like you needed a husband to be able to do anything.
Right.
Like, I couldn't get my own line of credit.
Right.
By myself. I couldn't own property by myself. Like, everything would be in my husband's name, or going from my father's name to my husband's name, right? For me to be able to do anything.
And that's the way that the system is set up, right?
Exactly.
To make a woman believe that she must have this partner. And then it was men only, right? So it had to be a male. It had to be a man. And now, thank God, right? We've been a little more inclusive.
Right. And progressive.
And we're saying, exactly. Yes. And saying, hey, look, you can have domestic relationships. And
it could look however you want it to look.
Exactly. So it's really about that thing about control. And again, I think that all where my resistance is with some of those societal norms around marriage, because to me it's about control. Now, my partner's African, so there's also a whole cultural layer that I probably haven't even been exposed to, because this is the first time that this is happening, right? So I ain't even talked to his mother yet.
See, but that I feel like that's interesting. Like the difference in cultures, it definitely showed up earlier on in my relationship with Dex. So Dex is, Caribbean American, first generation from Grenada, right? And so I'm American. Like, I'm just American. Just American, right? And I remember we had discussions of, and this is like before before we were engaged, like we're just dating exclusively. And, some of his family would ask, where's your girlfriend from? Like assuming that I was from another like Caribbean island.
Right.
And, when he would say, oh no, she's from here. She's
from
just
Brooklyn.
American. And like the response was always like a look, not necessarily like a statement, but a look like, okay, well, what, why is that?
What you trying to do with
that?
Right.
Why is that? Like, why you can't find yourself like another like West Indian woman? And he always took this position of, well, why do I have to? Like, oh, well, how's she gonna know how to cook like the food you like? And he's like, well, I know how to cook the food I like.
Right.
And I can take responsibility for continuing my culture if this relationship goes to marriage or children and blah, blah, blah. And so like fast forward, okay, we have our daughter, Simone, and he's the person that's responsible for continuing his culture. Right. Like in terms of whatever food he likes to eat, he's the one that makes the curry goat, the curry chicken, the stew lamb, the stew chicken, and all of that stuff. That he's not putting that on me.
So when were you guys gonna come over to our house? I'd like rice and peas.
I'll put it on the calendar. I'll keep him in the kitchen all day. So it's interesting to me that that hasn't shown up for you guys just because you weren't engaged like prior to this.
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Misinterpret.
Yes.
Misinterpret.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, they have shown up, but I'm talking about now the marriage piece, right? Because there's been other discussions or expectations or questions that have been asked or assumed by me, assumed on me, that I had to clarify. I'll use that word to clarify, right? And so I'm looking forward to one, taking on some of that culture and bringing that into our ceremony. I even feel like I want to do a little more research about the word wedding, and where that even comes from, because some traditions have ceremony and it's not called a wedding.
Right.
So I want to know where that comes from. And so I can be informed when I make my decision on what we're going to call our union, right? Or the process of our union. But no, his mom has definitely, had conversations with me about some expectations that she has for the woman who would be dating her son. Now, I anticipate that sounding a little different.
Well, for her son's wife.
Correct.
Okay. And that, I feel like that alone is interesting, right? Because he's his own person. So he should be the one that has that conversation with you based off of his whatever he's looking for, whatever he needs. I don't need that to come from a third party, like, because I'm not in the relationship with. But
that's the culture,
moms.
Right? Is that like he could be somebody who can advocate for himself, speak up for himself, but it does not remove his mother or the mother's position to then still speak up. So, and that's why, like, you and I, we on the same page, right? Because we have a different culture.
Right.
Right. And so for me, it's kind of like, hey, this is you and I. We'll kind of like, work our thing out. But it does not stop, eliminate, or remove any of her sharing, right? Or expressing of what she thinks, feels, desires, wants, or expects. And that's maybe just who she is as a person or a culture. I think it's a little bit of both. But learning that allows me to respect that, not take it personally.
Right.
And really just show up with love either way.
Right. Because I think, she's probably just operating based off of like her
knows,
experience and what she knows. Right. And I think it's always interesting because, like Dexter's mom, like, and she's just really great. And she, when she was marrying like his dad, I think his dad's mom would butt in like constantly, and she had to figure out the best way to navigate that. And because that was her experience, she doesn't meddle at all in our relationship.
Wow, see?
Because she knows she's been on the receiving end of that and understands that like that's not how you do it.
Right.
Like you can give guidance, especially when asked. Especially when asked, yes.
Remember that song? Your mom is in my business. She's in my business. Can't you see, girl? Your mom is trying to end this.
Like,
I think of that.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, when asked, just give your advice or your guidance. And I think, like, as an adult, I think one of the things that annoys me the most is like unsolicited advice. Yeah. It's just everybody mind your own business.
Yeah. Another one. Just mind your business. Mind your business. But I don't even know what that's about. You know what? I mind other people's business. And I think like of my friends or something like that. Like if they have a situation going on and they're just telling me a story, I'm still learning how to create that space where it's like you just share and I just listen.
Yep.
But I also know that when I'm challenged in creating that space, I know I'm showing up with love, but I have to understand that whatever is going to work out for that person is going to work out for that person. So I think it's just having that boundary and that understanding. And, you know, for the older generation, it's just like it is what it is. You know, I have tried to teach, you know, elders about their lane, you know, but I don't think that's a battle that can fully win.
Right.
But sometimes it's worth showing up. It's worth kind of talking about.
Yeah, no, it is. I think, you know, just being able to question things and really try to decide whether or not like something works for you. And so we were talking a bit about societal norms. So I know the answer to this question for myself, but I'll ask you. If Peter had proposed without a ring, would that have swayed your answer? What
you say without a ring?
Without
nothing?
With nothing.
Not even like a glass of wine?
Nothing. No ring out. No ring pop ring. Nothing.
Not a string.
The dinner. Everything else.
And then he was just kneeling down in the sand and just say, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you."
Yes.
He would have definitely had to turn that into a question, right? I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Would you marry me? I would say yes. Because to me, the ring, again, is a part of these norms, right? What does that ring actually mean?
Right.
So here, I don't know these people personally, but in another life, I feel like, you know, Beyonce and I are really good friends. You know, I've actually met Jay-Z, so, you know, we're cool. And Beyonce doesn't wear her ring. You know, they don't wear their rings per se. They have like some little tattoo or something like that. But it's really like, who's the ring for?
Right.
You know, I think in a way the ring is just a way to almost like, and I'm
go
saying
there, go it.
It's a brand. It's like to label your territory, to mark your territory. This mine, right? So even like recently, I'm going to Miami, and I made a joke, and I said, I'm not going to wear my ring to Miami. And he said, well, wait a minute. I need them to know you're already taken. So I find that interesting because before the ring, how did people know I was taken? They would try to push up.
And you say something.
Because, you know, I was out there looking good. They would try to push up. But I would say that I'm in a relationship, you know?
The market.
So the ring, I think, is really like to say, for me, it's almost like I own you. Like, here's this ring, and now you're mine.
And it's one way, because he doesn't have a ring on.
So you get to be out there all willy-nilly. And the only thing I'm relying on is your honesty to say, and your faithfulness that you will say, I'm in a relationship. You know, and that's not something that I like,
Which,
you know, think
right,
about or
right,
worry about.
right,
But
but
we're like
it's
taking me and Peter out of this and we
right.
look
We're
at
just looking at
human beings, right?
exactly.
It's like, yeah, the guy gets to go around with no ring until you actually get married. And if you don't get married for 5 years, that's 5 years of you going around
right
with no ring.
Right.
While I'm walking around all claimed.
Right. And it's interesting because Dex and I have had this discussion at length, and even before we got engaged, and you know, he was like the whole engagement ring process. He was like, I don't really believe in it. It's like, it's pretentious. It's it's one-sided. Like I don't want to claim ownership on you in any way, and this, that, and the other. And, you know, he broke down that whole argument several times. And I was like, no, I get what you're saying, but I still want to work.
Right. That's so funny.
Like, it's just like, okay, like, yes, I get it. And it's interesting. And I can understand where you're coming from. And the logical part of me is rocking with you.
So what you want the ring?
But
what
I
does
still
it mean
want
for you?
it. I still want it because it's nice and shiny.
It's what I want.
Yeah, it's what I want. Like, and I always, you know, and I didn't really have like grandiose expectations of it. Like, I would accept any ring that he gave me, right? Because it's like what it symbolizes is more important than like
what it is.
It in its physical form. But I like the idea of it, even though I can agree it's problematic, and I can understand like the whole like branding aspect of it. And you know, it's interesting because I don't wear it all the time. Like I take it off like to shower and stuff, and like sometimes
you forget to put it back on.
I forget to put it back on, and I don't even fit. I'm just like, whoops, I didn't wear it today. And I don't think he's ever noticed that, oh, hey, you don't have the ring on here, because it's not that huge of a deal for him, right? And it's just like, I know we're together. You know we're together.
And
that's it.
And I think that that's a huge shift, and that shift is, again, breaking out of these societal norms. We have just been raised on it. I mean, you look at even commercials. If you see a commercial and it's a man and a woman and a kid, that woman has a ring on her finger.
Right.
Right? They have to let you know that these people are married and have this kid.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that that's still like the poster picture for the nuclear family, especially in where we are now, where there are so many variations of family, like without even like blood relation and things of that nature. So are they less legitimate?
Right.
Are they less valuable? Should we not strive for those different combinations?
Right. And I think that that's where, again, being clear on who you are and what you want matters the most, because then you don't get caught up in all of that, right? It's just like, that's what they're doing, but this is what I'm going to do, and just be okay with that. So I think that's also what I'm being challenged with internally. It's like just being okay with whatever it is that I want, and whatever we want, instead of what other people want or assume for us, you know, in all ways of this relationship, you know? So it's very interesting. Very interesting. So like, when you get married, are you going to take on last name? What are you going to do with your name?
Nope. That was something that was discussed before we got engaged as well. Because I think that piece is very old timey, right? It is like, well, I'm me, right? I'm Marguerite Pierce. that's who I was born as, and that's who I'm going to die as. I don't feel like it's necessary for me to take on his name. And, the way that that conversation came up, I think, we had been talking about marriage here or there. And I just said, hey, how would you feel if I didn't take your last name? And, he paused and, Dex is just very thoughtful. Like he pauses before he answers. Sometimes I just answer, but he pauses and he really considers what's being asked. And he said, he's like, well, no, he said it wouldn't, he's indifferent about it. Like he has no feelings about it because he understands that it's not a necessity in today's society. Like I don't need to have his name to go get the bread from the bakery or the milk from the who sells milk? I don't know. The supermarket. I couldn't.
The cow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who sells the milk? The milkman. Jesus.
1932.
That's where I'm trying to go back
I
to.
see.
Then in my mind wasn't rocking with me, but yeah. So he realized that. He's like, yeah, no, I don't need to claim ownership of you in that way. Again, it's I know we're together and you know we're together.
So wait, so you're not even hyphenating it.
No,
you're just straight up
I'm
Marguerite
me.
Pierce.
I'm not changing. I'm not going to the Social Security office and getting a new birth certificate or Social Security card and passport. It's just honestly, it's like a paperwork nightmare to me too.
Right.
But I mean, that's just like the afterthought of it.
Right.
It's just like I don't want to be bothered with any of that. But two, like I'm me. Like this is my name, and this is my name.
I'm dancing between a little bit of both, right? Like there's this part of me that knows or assumes, because we haven't even had the conversation yet, because it's still all very new. So it's like really prompting me to remember to have this conversation with him after I have the conversation with you all first. But the conversation of, I assume that he wants me to take his last name, right? I just feel like that's the type of guy he is. And so there's this compromise within me that's like, all right, that's something that you really want, but I also really want to keep my last name. So I'm willing to like hyphenate it. But then there's this other side that's like, I just want to be Lindsay Jackson as well. And because we have a daughter together, and we kind of even said it to her when we talked about the engagement, that was like, look, now we'll all have the same last name. Now I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like I have to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I know that our daughter is really looking forward to, is us having the same, last name. So it's not decided yet. I got plenty of time, which is the great thing.
Right.
And it's my choice at the end of the day.
Right.
Right. Because nothing would change on his end. Again, you don't have to wear a ring till it goes down. You don't have to change your name when it goes down.
Right.
So all of that is really in favor, in a sense,
That's
right? For the guy, that the decisions don't really have to be made there, besides the fact that you choose to marry somebody.
Yeah, right? No, I think it's interesting, and I've thought in the past about everybody having the same name, but again, I'm just like, okay, well, there's plenty of families out there, blended families, that they don't have the same name. So that are they less of a family because they don't have the same last name?
Just as
and then
valuable.
I did even consider, when Simone was born, just giving her my last name. And like that was something that we discussed too, and he was indifferent about, like, if that's what I had wanted to do, then we would have done that.
That's powerful. Go Dex.
So like he's very like open-minded when it comes to things of this nature.
I love it.
So I was just like, oh, I knew that wasn't gonna be a uphill battle at all. Yeah, so it's interesting. Like I don't think because Simone and I have different last names that
we're not
I'm
family.
not her mother.
Right.
Like I'm your mom. Like,
right. No question.
No question about it. Exactly. Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. And I think, you had brought up something about the mastery of love. And as we were talking about rings, there's a different part or a chapter or story of the mastery of love that talks about like the man who didn't believe in love.
Yeah.
And, highly recommend you folks, read it or get the Audible. It's a really good book. And, the story about the man who didn't believe in love, like he really didn't experience love. So he assumed that it didn't exist, right? Until he finds a woman that had the same experience as him, that also believed, like she was hurt before, and she didn't believe in love either. And they start spending more and more time together, and then love started to develop, and everything was rosy and great and grand. Everybody was happy. And I think there's this moment where he was so happy that he looked up in the sky and there was like a really great star, and it embodied the happiness that he was feeling. So he plucked it out of the sky, and what does he do with it? He gives it to the woman. The woman didn't know what to do with it and is like, sorry, Holmes, I'm out.
Wow.
And, that story is meant to illustrate how sometimes in our modern society, or I'll say Western society and culture, that sometimes the exchange of the rings is that you're putting your happiness in the other person's hands. And I think that's the setup, though. Like, if that's the foundation of your relationship, you need to rethink that, like, as soon as possible, because I think the two, whoever is in the relationship, should be happy, independent of one another.
Right.
And my happiness is not rooted in Dexter. Right. Like, at all. Like, Dex is an added bonus. Like, our relationship is an added bonus. Like, I'm happy with him, but I would also be happy without him, because the happiness is internal to me.
Right. There's a Time magazine out, and the title or the focus for the entire magazine is about love. And it speaks to what you just mentioned, that relationships, marriages specifically, will last longer when there is a lack of a codependence, right? That it's really important to be independent, and have your own goals, your own vision, your own beliefs, your own values, your own dreams, and go after those, and still have the relationship. But to then put that or project that within the relationship and say, hey, it's up to you to help my dreams come true. It's up to you to believe in my dreams and to push me and to, make me matter. You're setting yourself up for failure, right? That relationship is going to fail because it's banking on something that can't exist, right? And that is leaving joy in somebody else. So I really look forward to keeping you all updated about what happens over the next, I don't know, I say it's 1.5 years, I say it's 2 years, who knows? But y'all better not have no expectations for me, okay? So if I come back next episode and we married, you just say, congratulations.
Exactly. And smile, right? And it's just so interesting, like, how there these time expectations, and it's crazy, because I was just curious, especially like when I heard your news, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I was like, oh, well, damn, like, me and Dex have been engaged going on 5 years now. Like, there's no time limit. Like, you define it yourself. And I was just curious as to what the average, like, timeline between, like, engagement and marriage for
average.
As the average couple in America, it's 13 months.
Wow.
And
Okay.
and wedding professionals suggest that you wait 3 weeks after your engagement before jumping into wedding planning. So
okay.
I'm super behind according to those statistics.
I'm right on track then. I'm good. It's all good. Based off of statistics, I'm good.
Yes, and-
Finally.
Oh, too funny. But yeah, I think in some, I think everybody just operate how you see best.
Right. And communicate about it.
Exactly.
Early on.
Be clear. Don't make assumptions. Like, be really clear about what you want, and make sure you have clarity about what the other person wants.
Yep. Totally.
Now that brings us to tea time.
Clink, clink.
Clink, clink. For this week, the T is for time, right? We were just talking about, what wedding planners suggest you should wait after your engagement, and I'm so far over that time limit. So create and operate on your own timeline. It's not a race.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you feel is best.
And the E is for explore. I want you to be your own little Christopher Columbus. You've got to explore your own.
Maybe not him.
No, right. Well,
not him. Well, I mean, all of them, really. But anyway, we know.
Right,
what
we're
you're
not going to
saying.
go there. That's a different episode.
Yes.
So, all right, maybe not Christopher. All right, but point is that we want you to explore, right? Really explore your values, your goals, your beliefs, and see what you share with your partner. Do you have the same goals, values, and beliefs? And if not, explore the common ground, really, to figure out where you both can meet each other on the other end.
And the best way to set yourself up for exploring all those things together is to avoid this episode is for avoid expectations and societal norms that don't resonate with you and that don't fit into the definition of your relationship. That's
right. Yeah. So sip on that tea.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yum, yum.
And remember to follow us at
NECCI_TEA_podcast on Instagram.
That's right. Y'all gonna know this by heart, okay? You're gonna be saying it with us. You're gonna ride in the car. You're gonna say NECCI, okay? It was great being with you all.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.